Hi, good evening, and welcome to my live session on various topics for execution excellence by changing mindset and culture. I've been mainly talking about various tools and methods that I have come across in my life, which I use in my consulting, training, facilitating, coaching assignments, mentoring assignments. And yesterday I spoke about one tool, and today I'll be talking about another one, and tomorrow one more. And it goes on like that. I've got quite a few tools, a lot of them in my toolkit. So let me first start off by giving a quick recap of what I spoke yesterday. So let me just now add the tool which I spoke about yesterday on the screen, which is about agile mindset. When I speak about agile mindset, I first explained about the what mindset is, which is basically a kind of a framework which is formed in each one of our minds based on our past emotional experiences, emotional memories, and this framework is driving predictions in our subconscious mind, which is always happening 500 milliseconds before we do any activity in the subconscious mind. So consciously, we are not aware of that, and these predictions happen in real time, and that's what that drives our predictions, our thinking, or deciding, acting, or responding. Then I went on to explain that agile mindset is all about having a outlook which is positive, having an outlook which is uh, uh, oriented towards growth, oriented towards learning, oriented towards enabling oneself better than what one is today, which means that any failure is recognized as an opportunity to learn, and any situation is considered as a challenge. I don't think there is any situation where a growth mindset or agile mindset would uh, what should I say, shy away from. Everything is looked at as an opportunity. They're looked at as challenges to learn, and therefore it's a lifelong, continuous learning which happens. And there are other things like we don't the ones who have agile mindset would generally not very much be perturbed by others succeeding because they feel that they can learn from the success instead of really feeling let down that look I didn't succeed, the other person succeeded. These are all the traits of agile mindset which I explained, and how to do that was using do-how, which is a methodology invented by me for creating execution excellence. Execution excellence happens with agile mindset. That is extremely important for execution excellence in today's scenario of so much amount of uncertainty. That's what I spoke about yesterday. And today, I'm going to be talking about another tool, which is what you call as PDCA cycle or the Deming cycle. I think you must have heard of this. Let me now continue with the same size. It's not difficult to read. There are just four words: plan, do, check, and act. And at the bottom, it says Deming cycle. So, what is this all about? And let me very, very briefly explain the Plan, Do, Check, Act. It's a very simple, commonsensical tool which says that whatever you're doing, you need to first plan, and after that, do, which is basically execute that plan. Act is plan, do, then after that, you need to check whatever you accomplished, whether it was as per the plan or as per your desired intention. And after that, act, which is mainly the learning phase. So, plan, do, check, act is plan, do, check, and act or learn. That is the four phases of a cycle. And this cycle, if it is continuously done, then there is continuous evolution and there is progress. That is the basic principle. And this cycle of plan, do, check, act was first thought through and then introduced by Deming. Deming is a guru in quality, mostly worked in Japan. Though he is a US born citizen, he did not get so much amount of prominence in US, and went on to Japan, and the Japanese thought and understood his capabilities and used it, put it to use. And that's how a lot of things started off in Japan, PDCA being one, Deming cycle. Otherwise, the statistical process control, a lot of things was done by Deming in Japan to improve the quality of the Japanese products so that they could compete worldwide. I remember a story where I believe Ford Motor Company wanted to buy gearboxes, and then they didn't have capacity in the US, so they had to get the gearboxes from Japan. And when they got the gearboxes from Japan, the customers were quite apprehensive, not to really buy a car with a Japanese gearbox, Japanese quality those days. I'm talking about late or early 90s or late 80s or mid 80s or early 80s. And those days, Japanese quality was not very popular. It was not that what should I say, common. So therefore, they always felt it is a second quality. It won't be really good. And then it so happened that the Japanese gearboxes never had a problem, and the American gearboxes always had a problem that it was causing some noise. And then when they started discovering and finding out, the Japanese gearboxes were done to perfection. In the sense, whatever was the tolerance in the drawing, they were always targeting the central value, so that the spread was very, very less, which was the secret of SPC, to be able to control the process, to be able to achieve the target value. And doing so, uh, the Americans realized, and after that, a lot of people from MIT, from Stanford, and various universities went to Japan to study them, and then came up multiple books, multiple research articles, and one of them, which is very, very popular, is what is called as The Machine That Changed the World. I don't know whether you heard of that book. Very nice book. Talks about how did Japanese achieve such great wonders in quality. All this, to a great extent, definitely can be attributed to Deming. Apart from, definitely, there are people like Taiichi Ono who thought about the lean manufacturing system, and various other doyens in Japan. I'm not going to discredit anybody, but Deming was somebody very interesting because of being an American who could not succeed in his own country and had to do it in Japan. So that's Deming cycle. Now, with all that theory and stuff, let me now look at what is it that, in my experience, the key factors of using PDCA cycle in the real sense. It's not about making a plan on paper and then getting it executed, and after that checking where do you stand, and then acting in terms of a review meeting or whatever. There is so much amount of wisdom inherent in that. So let me start with each cycle and explain in a minute or two what I feel is the core of that particular phase. When I talk about planning, the core of planning is to make a plan which is realistic. Most of the time, what happens in organizations is that we would try to make a plan assuming that the set targets would be achieved. I'll just give you an example. There was one of our clients who was trying to do contract manufacturing for a company which was making food processing devices. And this food processing devices company basically was interested in buying the manufacturing from this company, some kind of a contract manufacturing, you can say. And there, what happened was the food processing company had told them that we have a target cost and you have to meet the target cost. And they had assumed that the manufacturing company would be able to achieve their bought out pricing, bought out components target cost. They had fixed a target cost of, I think it must have been somewhere around 700 rupees or 70,000 rupees or something like that. This equipment was costing about 1.5 lakh rupees or something like that. 70 or 1,000 rupees was the bought out price target. And in the entire purchasing volume, the bought out content of the particular product was about 70,000 rupees. And they said based on 70,000 rupees, it will cost about 1.5 lakh rupees. Whereas that was the plan they had. Whereas in reality, they were actually purchasing, their actual purchasing cost at that moment, this company was close to about 1.5 lakh rupees, 100% more than the target. Now, when that is the situation, it is absolutely absurd to really take the target as the base for the plan. Then the plan will never work. Never will it work. That is something which is very important. The other thing is in terms of the utilization. Production, it is very, very interesting. When somebody makes a plan, you talk about utilization, consider that the utilization is already 85% and plan it according to that. It will be a disaster, because when your machine is working at 65% utilization, 65% OEE, let us say, there is no point in planning at 85% OEE. It won't work. It won't work at all. So therefore, the first wisdom in the plan phase is to ensure that the plan is realistic, absolutely realistic. If the assumption changes, if the reality changes, there is absolutely no problem in changing the assumptions so that the plan becomes different. But it is absolute foolishness to plan based on assumptions which are targets. Please don't do that. The second learning which I have got is, when you're doing a plan, it's mandatory. It's essential. It's kind of a what should I say, must, to ensure that everybody who are involved in executing the plan have understood the plan uniformly. You may be thinking this guy is spinning really. Of course, I'm spinning. The guy who does the planning is normally a very junior guy in the organization, and a lot of other big doyens in the other departments and the other functions who believe that this particular person who's doing the plan is not capable of doing a plan. Therefore, the plan doesn't work. It's not at all that. The guy who did the plan, who did it with so much amount of wisdom, so much amount of realism, so much amount of down-to-earth understanding of the reality, and based on that, he did the plan. But unfortunately, the others in the organization may not understand, may not accept, may not agree to the plan. So it's important to establish a common understanding of the plan. They are the two fundamental criteria which you need to look up when you talk about the plan cycle. When it comes to the do cycle, it's extremely simple. Once the plan is done, let us say there are four people involved in planning. Let us the four people were involved, four people were consulted, and based on that, the plan was finalized. Now, during the do cycle, obviously, Dr. Murphy is always there. Something goes wrong, something is surprising, something is uncertain. Therefore, one of these four people who are executing the plan would take a decision on their own to change, to do something different. That is prohibited. I use the word prohibited, absolutely prohibited. It cannot be working at all. When you have done a plan with four people together, it is mandatory, it is essential, it is mandatory that any change in the plan during the action phase has to be done in consultation with the other three. And the only person in the organization who can agree to that is the guy who did the planning. And this is again a very interesting personal and people issue in an organization, because manufacturing is all about having a plan, having a process, and then just do it. It's so simple. But then more than the technology of the manufacturing, people around it is equally or possibly play a bigger role. And that is where the success comes in. In the acting phase, I had a big issue. I remember my discussions with my reports, who were general managers or divisional managers reporting to me. And then there was this guy who was a manager or maybe a senior executive who would do a plan. So my statement in all the meetings, wherever I would participate, is that that guy would do the plan. And all of us, even including me, will close my eyes and follow the plan, whatever he has done. And all of us have the only job of making sure the plan is executed with the highest efficiency. There is no question of asking whether I have to do a particular type A or type B. It has to be only as per his plan. In case any change is there, then you need to get his agreement. He has to, you talk to him and come back to me. A lot of times it has happened to me that people have come to me saying that, look, that plan doesn't work. Okay, absolutely fine. I don't have any problem. Get back to the drawing table, go to this guy, and then find out why it doesn't work, and then change and get the concurrence of all the others and come back to me. Then after that, that didn't you many times wouldn't work. So what I did was I introduced what is called a golden rule. I don't know whether the same is being operated still in the departments where I worked. My golden rule was the following: when there is a plan, when there is an agreement done by four people, anybody deviates that on their own without consulting the others, it is a deviation to the golden rule. And we would track every meeting. Every meeting, I would ask everybody, was there a deviation of the golden rule? If yes, then that department or that person or that individual, that general manager gets a negative point. So I would count the negative points on an Excel sheet. And it was really fabulous. And within no time, we really stopped a lot of, what should I say, nonsense which is going in the organization, because people would change the plan on their own. That is the most key aspect of the act phase. Of course, people are trying to act the best way. They're not really doing anything dumb. But then when the plan is done with four people, it is mandatory that plan is changed also with the four people, because of a uncertainty which happened in the act phase. That is the next phase, act phase. Most important thing is to make sure that the plan is executed. And in case you can't execute the plan, please change it. You are allowed to change it, but only in consultation and coordination with others who did the plan. That is the act phase. My wisdom from the act phase. The third is the check phase. What is the check phase? Check phase is basically to check whether what you had planned is what was actually achieved. So here there are two things. One is target achievement, which is very simple, which you can check. You can check against the standard, you can check against the tolerance, you can check against a specification whether the end outcome was as desired. And more than that, I would also look at three more topics during the check phase. You must be thinking this guy is crazy. Yes, I am crazy, because that craziness is what that got fantastic results, absolutely amazing outcomes. We really moved mountains. What is the key success factor in the check phase? First is you ask again whether the intent of whatever the planning was it clearly understood again by everybody? Same thing, I go back to the plan phase. Check that, whether the understanding was uniform. Get people to repeat what they understood. That is the first one. Second is to check out what did go well, what did not go well. That's a kind of a learning activity that has to happen in each and every meeting. Each and every discussion you have got, please ask these three questions. Was the intent understood by everybody uniformly? Expectations understood by everybody uniformly? Plan understood by everybody uniformly? And what did go well? What did not go well? From those two succeeding questions would be, what are we going to repeat? What are we going to stop doing it? These are the fundamental essence of checking. Checking is not about comparing to a standard that any idiot can do. You imagine having so many general managers, vice presidents, executive vice presidents, senior managers, directors, senior directors in the organization. What are they for? Basically, to ask these questions: was the intent and the assumptions and the conditions, expectations understood uniformly by everybody? What went well? What did not go well? What are we going to continue doing? What are we going to stop doing? That is the act phase. That is the plan, check phase. So in the check phase, these are the questions you would ask, apart from just comparing to a specification or a target. Then finally comes the act phase. Act phase is a fantastic thing. 99% of the cases, or majority of the cases, act phase is actually skipped. Again, once we check, we go to the plan phase and then start doing the entire thing. What is the act phase? Act phase is basically to incorporate whatever learnings we had in the system. If suppose we understood that the assumptions which we had taken for the planning was not right, act is to correct those assumptions. If we found out that something which we didn't really yield the results, act phase is to stop doing it, to change your procedures, to change your policies, to change your guidelines, to change the processes, to change the instructions, to change the SOPs, to make sure that they are now updated. Because I'm talking about organizations. Otherwise, individually, I could always decide that, look, I'm not going to do that. But in an organization, it's important that these documents are updated, and that is the act phase. I remember one quality circle award ceremony which I was having in our company, and then I had to give an award, and the team had done a lot of job, but then they had not done the act phase at all. So I said, I'm not going to give the award. And it was a big showdown that day. I said, why team has done so much amount of work you to give the. I said, I'm not going to give the award. When we are talking about scientific problem solving, which is the for which PDCA is the foundation. Scientific problem solving, what we call today as DMAIC or Six Sigma or whatever, PDCA is the foundation for that. And in the PDCA, when you talk about scientific problem solving, there is no question of skipping a particular step in science. You have to go through all the steps. And this step was skipped. So I said, I'm not going to give the award. Then there was a lot of, what should I say, turbulence, and everybody came back to me saying that, look, you have not done right. You as the head of the organization here, you cannot be disappointing and demotivating people. I said, I'm not going to be giving some award for something which is done shabbily. For me, act phase is extremely important, because without that, there is no organizational learning at all. How do you think we could reduce from 4 or 5 digit PPM levels to 2 digit PPM levels in about less than a year? This is the only secret. How do you think we could reduce in another case from 5 digit PPM levels of defect to 0 defect? How do you think we could increase productivity by 50% in about 2 years? All this is the only secret, PDCA, where the act is the secret. And if you are interested, there is one article which you want to read in HBR. I think it is Go For, and Go For is what I remember as the word. You can Google that. I believe here they talk about military training which happened in US. It's even today happening. And this particular group, I'll speak of that and end this discussion, because PDCA is something which is very, very exciting. And there's a lot of wisdom behind PDCA. People don't understand. That's why I thought I'll take a little longer time today. And so in this particular training institute in US, this was during the Iraq war. And then they would get the soldiers who would have been deployed in Iraq. And after they come back, they would become trainers. And then these trainers would then teach the newcomers, and newcomers in the sense the ones who would be deployed to Iraq. And that was a kind of a live situation where they would do the training. And in that training, they would have what is called as an after action review. That is the ACT cycle. ACT is after action review. You can also call it as EAR, but then it is ACT is a word which is used in the PDCA cycle. That's what we'll stick on to. After action review is again asking the same 3 questions. What was the intent, expectations, and assumptions? Was it understood uniformly by everybody? First question. Second question, what did go well? What did not go well? What are we going to continue? What are we going to stop? These 3 questions. Now, that is something which the trainers tell the trainees. Trainees are the new, what should I say, soldiers and various levels of the armed forces in the US would go through the training. And they would also explain what all have been the lessons learned till now. And then they would have a mock war between the trainers and the trainees. I believe in the history, that's a very interesting article. The trainees have never won, never have they won, because the only thing that the trainers know better, because the trainers have to be explaining everything before the start of the war, because before the start of the simulation. They have to explain everything, whatever happened till now, what were the learning, what were the failures, what needs to be done, what strategies are working, what strategies are not working, everything you have to explain. So they have explained everything. They really don't have anything up their sleeve, but still they would always beat the trainee team. And this is something interesting. And mind you, these trainers are only there for 3 months. After that, they're again deployed back to Iraq. So it's not that the trainers are so experienced and so wise that they've been training for ages together. Not at all. The only secret they had was to ensure that the act phase is done with precision, with meticulousness. What are the meticulousness and precision? Asking whether everybody understood the intent and the expectations, and whether they acted as per that. And the second is whether what did went well, what did not go well, and what are we going to change. That's all. And that would keep happening continuously during that simulation, maybe every two minutes, every 3 minutes, so that they are constantly learning. And that learning is something that make them win consistently, despite them not having any experience. And that's the power of acting. So PDCA cycle, again, just to summarize, has a lot of wisdom inherent in it. And that inherent wisdom is something which you need to look at, rather than looking at the 4 words and then looking at the dictionary meanings of planning, doing, checking, and acting. Thanks a lot for watching. And for those of you in India, have a nice evening. For those of you outside India, have a great day ahead. And as usual, Arildo, tudo bem? Muito obrigado que você está olhando. Por favor, como eu falei, escreve para mim. Nós podemos fazer mesmo tipo de live na língua português. E bom dia para você. Thanks a lot for watching. And before I leave, let me briefly explain what am I going to be doing tomorrow, which is also equally important, so that you can get a preview and if you can plan out to participate. Tomorrow, my tool is information. Information is the tool. And I'll tell you a lot of stories about information, which is very, very important, very interesting. And information is something which is always a problem. If any organization you go to, they say that we don't have information, therefore we are not able to do it. Let's see what it's all about. And see you tomorrow. Have a nice evening and have a great day ahead. And then see you tomorrow, more or less at the same time, 8:30 Indian Standard Time. Goodbye.